Hello there.
Hey, good afternoon. How's everyone doing today?
We are doing great, and I hope you are too.
Doing fantastic. I can see almost everyone. Looks like we have a quorum. Am I seeing correctly, Dr. Gibbons?
You have Nathan, Robbie, Lori, and Jennifer. And I just sent a text to Norris, and then their staff members on board.
Excellent. Showing about 1 minute to go here, and we'll get started if that's okay.
That sounds great. We are ready to go.
Okay, welcome everyone. It's 4 p.m. I want to welcome everyone to our governance meeting, July 26th governance meeting. We'll officially call the meeting to order. Our first order of business, Dr. Gibbons Sherman, any suggestions or changes to the agenda before we approve?
No, the agenda as it's posted now is what we'll follow. Some adjustments this weekend.
Sure, no problem. Hearing that, the chair will entertain a motion to approve today's agenda.
This is Jennifer. So moved.
Thank you, Jennifer. Second. I hear a second.
Second from Lori.
Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of today's agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion passes. We have an agenda. We'll move on to item 3, which is approval of minutes from our May 24th and June 20th meetings. Entertain a motion for approval for the minutes.
So moved, Lori.
Thank you, Lauren. Do we have a second?
Second, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, motion is approved. Our minutes are passed. Item 4 is public comment. Dr. Gibbons Sherman, do we have anyone that has signed up to speak?
We do not.
All right, hearing none, quickly moving to item 5. We'll jump in the superintendent's report. And before we do, Dr. Gibbons Sherman, I know you'll mention this, but we want to welcome to the governance team, Dr. Robbie Hooker from Social Circle City Schools. Today with us, replacing Dr. Beverly Levine, and we thank Beverly for her years of service on the Foothills governance team. But we look forward to working with Dr. Hooker as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Gibbons Sherman for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Franklin. You took the words right out of my mouth. And Robbie, we welcome you. And if there's any questions, please feel free to interrupt. Superintendent's report. We have the customary attached roster and all the updates since the last time we met. Nothing extraordinary, except you will notice we've started the process of splitting the Barrow staff. We'll be opening a second facility in Barrow County on August the 8th. And so we're in the process of separating the staff to accommodate students that are going over to the new site, which is Russell Middle School. Students, you'll see an update on our students and the number of students at each one of our locations. We're like right close to 2,800 students right now. and that's as of the end of June. And everything is picking up pretty quick as they register and come on in. You've got the progress reports showing how well we've done, and we're real excited about the test scores, and we'll tell you about that in just a few minutes. The student newsletter is in process. It's almost finished. There's one more sweep of people that need to look at it, and we will have that ready for you probably tonight. And so we'll send that out. And just a reminder, we do newsletters every month, one to focus on students and one to focus on program development. At the end of June, we had a total of 306 graduates for last year. And so we're real proud of that number. 306 individuals who did not think they'd get a high school diploma now have one. And we are actively seeking higher education as well as work placements for all of these students. So we're very proud of that number, 306. As a matter of fact, we were looking across Mountain Ed and Coastal Plains, and we pushed us all together. It's over 1,000 kids that we pushed over the line to get a high school diploma this last year. And since we've opened, we've graduated 1,816 students, and that's as of the end of June. And that number has also increased, and we're right close to 2,000 students since we opened. 2,000 students at Foothills is awarded a high school diploma, including this morning. Over at Burra State Prison, we had a graduation this morning, and we were able to congratulate 10 students in person, plus 10 others who graduated earlier. So that's the students, and we're moving right along with that. I'll just pause for a moment, see if there are any questions. Okay, moving on to program development. We continue with the program, informing our public what we're doing in our program. And what you've got here is a newsletter where we focused on Senate Bill 153. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about some work that's going on with that that's exciting and that we're feeling very positive about. But this newsletter focuses on where we are and where we stand. And this is out there for people to know the work we're doing on behalf of that bill to make sure it's operationally in a way that serves students well. So that's what that newsletter is about. In our next part, we get to talk about our test scores. And what you've got there in your packet is results of the end of course for this FY22. And I've asked Dale to just highlight a few points of pride with our test scores. As you remember, at the very beginning, year one, we struggled. But when we discovered that our curriculum was not aligned to state standards, the students didn't have a chance. And so we have backed up and have an aggressive curriculum development process that continues to this day. And our students have shown us that that's what they needed. So Dale, would you put some highlights for us on the end of course?
Sure. As Dr. Gibney Sherman stated in your agenda packet, you have our results, and we were really impressed by those. We had 80 more students taking an EOC this year, and so that indicates a higher level of course completion, which is great. On page 1 of the document that you have, you'll see our weighted content mastery projection for the year, and you'll notice that we made increases from last year in algebra, biology, and US history. American Lit was close to where we were last year, but we didn't exceed last year's results. And you may remember that we had a really stellar year last year with American literature. Specifically, we were one of the top schools in the state, and those results were pretty difficult to beat. As you know, the milestones results from last school year have recently been released by the DOE. And we were very proud of our biology and US history results specifically because we exceeded the state averages for the percentage of students scoring a 2 or higher, those scoring a 3 or higher, as well as the mean scale score for, again, biology and US history. So overall, we're really proud of our students and our teachers for the hard work that they've put into this. Our data team will continue doing data analysis to make sure that we use this data to impact the work here at Foothills so that we can get even stronger results for next year.
Thank you, Dale. Okay, I think I heard some applause in the background. I think that's what I heard. Okay, moving right on to the next, strategic plan and cognitive alignment. Our focus for our strategic planning work this summer with our leadership was on our strategic plan and Cognia and queuing all those pieces up. Now I've asked Todd Nicholson to share with you our process in less than 5 minutes, but this will be an infomercial. If you're in the process of getting ready for Cognia, you want him. And he'd be very glad to meet with your whoever is on your team planning your accreditation. As a matter of fact, while we were working, Greg Artsdorf came in and watched us work, and he was so impressed that he asked Todd to present at his conference in November. And Todd has learned quickly about Foothills, and not only that, has knit together a very impressive plan. So Todd, give them a peek at what we're working on.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Gibney Sherman. And I want to thank the governance board too, because back in March, you gave us some really wonderful feedback, and that feedback is what we used moving forward. So I've got a timer in front of me and I will be brief, but I am very proud of the work that Foothills has been doing so far. So after we met, the goal was to take your input, combine it with additional stakeholder feedback, and start to reorganize our strategic plan in a manner that would align our core beliefs with expectations that are placed upon us by the DOE, the federal programs, and Cognia. The idea was that we didn't want to have 4 different plans. We wanted to have one plan that when we're doing the work of Foothills, we know we're also doing the work that is expected of us. So as you can see on the screen there, our vision and mission and beliefs have not changed, but the 4 pillars are how we have reorganized our belief statements as well as our goals and performance objectives. And so I don't know if it's Christy or Leo driving, but if you'll kind of scroll down a little bit, what you'll see is that underneath each pillar, we have at least 1 or 1 to 3 long-term goals, and then you have your performance objectives. That's not terribly different than anything else that anybody else is doing. But if you look on the right-hand side, you have the Cognia performance standards, and they're not in numerical order. That's because we spent about 4.5 months in different committees looking at each one of those, really diving into them and determining where they would best fit in our strategic plan. And so what we have is 100% alignment of our strategic plan and the Cognia performance standards. So instead of preparing for accreditation, we will continue to do the good work of Foothills and be ready for accreditation. In some instances, the alignment, and I think right, if you'll pause right there, so in some instances, the alignment was so great that we took, so if you see number 15, Cognia performance standard, with some slight verbiage change, that just became our performance objective. So again, we know that if we're doing that work and we're doing it over the course of 5-6 years, then we will not only be doing the work that we're committed to, that we believe passionately about, but we'll also be achieving the work that Cognia expects of us. So at the leadership retreat that Dr. Gibney Sherman mentioned, we also engaged in an activity where all the site directors reviewed the standards. We created a Google form that could go through, provide strengths, areas of concern, and then corresponding data and evidence that is required to make those claims about whether it's an area of strength or concern. And then we did something a little bit different because the standards are all new this year. We asked them to go ahead and prioritize. We took the standards that were the lowest rating and said, if we could only focus on 1 or 2 of these things that we're not doing as well as we'd like to, what would it be? And it ended up being, there are two performance standards. One is number 29, and whoever's driving, don't worry about finding it. I'll read it to you because it's further up in the document, but it's understanding learners' needs and interests drive the design, delivery, application, and evaluation of professional learning. So we're always our professional learning should always be focused on learners' needs. And then number 18, which is kind of unique for us, the way that we're set up, it's learners are immersed in an environment that fosters lifelong skills, including creativity, curiosity, risk-taking, collaboration, and design thinking. Based on the design of Foothills, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but it's a challenge that we're looking to take on. And so what will happen is those 2 performance standards will be woven into our site plans and our district plan. They're already in the strategic plan so that we know we can kind of chip away at that over the course of the next 6 years. The schematic that you can see there is a representation of how our strategic planning encompasses our continuous improvement cycle, which also encompasses the monthly site improvement planning cycle. And so what we spent time doing at the retreat also is sharing the 2 primary district improvement goals which are increasing graduation rate and improving academic performance. And so now our sites are setting SMART goals around those two, and they're using, thanks to Dale and partnership there, they're using the average number of courses completed per student, as well as a combined weighted content mastery. And in that bottom right-hand corner of that schematic, you can see site improvement meetings. Those happen every month, and every action step is aligned to one of the 4 pillars in our strategic plan, so that when our sites are doing the monthly, weekly, daily work of running a site, they're actually also making progress towards the overarching strategic plan, as well as the continuous improvement plan, which is really the federal programs, the SCLIP. So for our people in the trenches, they know what their charge is, and then we know where all these pieces fit into our different accountability partners. So that is 4 minutes and 54 seconds, Dr. Gimme Sherman. So I'll turn it back to you unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Todd, for a lot of things. You know, we're very fortunate to have Todd. And I do understand that Dr. Franklin has asked that Bill Ruma serve on one of your committees immediately, because they're up for accreditation. Is that correct, Dr. Franklin?
That's correct. I would like to volunteer Bill Ruma from the Walton site to get just as involved as you'd like him to, Todd. Great work so far preparing our strategic plan and the work of the cognitive review. And we have ours the following year, so we'd love to be heavily engaged in the process.
Thank you. And I know Bill from my days at Risa, so I would love to include him. I'll reach out to him.
All right. Thank you, Todd. You did exactly what was needed. All right, speaking of goals, we have our sweep graduation, August the 25th at Barrow at the Bethlehem Church. Those are for the last kids who just couldn't quite get over the finish line. And that's always kind of like the best graduation of all. And so that's on August 25th if you're available. And remember, that's a regional graduation for any student who didn't finish before now. And that's another celebration. Okay, I'm going to move right into discussion items that we need to kind of review. And the first is, and again, Robbie, thank you for joining us. Our first task, Dr. Franklin, is to have the Board of Officers elections. We need a chairperson and a vice chair.
All right. Thank you for that, Dr. Gibney Sherman. And we'll go right into it and make those decisions immediately so we can govern effectively for the rest of the meeting. And that's for this upcoming fiscal year, which has already started. With that in mind, for our 5 board members on the call, the chair will entertain a motion for nominations for chairperson for this fiscal year.
I'd like to make a nomination for a slate of officers, with the chair being Dr. Nathan Franklin.
We have 1 nomination. Do I hear any other nominations? I don't guess I get to nominate anybody else, huh?
No, you don't.
Hearing none. All those in favor for Nathan Franklin to serve as chairperson this year, please say yes. Or
Yes.
Yes.
all right. Any opposed? All right. Thanks for your vote of confidence. I'll happily serve in that capacity this year. We'll move straight into nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to make a nomination for Dr. Robbie Hooker to serve as the vice chair.
We have a nomination for Dr. Hooker to serve as vice chair. Do I hear any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor of Dr. Hooker to serve as vice chair, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Nomination passes. We have our chairperson and vice chair for FY23, Dr. Gibney Sherman. Thanks to Dr. Hooker for agreeing to serve.
Thank you. And we welcome you both in this role. If there's anything we can do to make it easier or smoother, just always let us know. Thank you. And while we're thanking, Dr. Franklin, thanks for your continued service. You've been a fabulous chairperson. We could not be prouder.
It's my pleasure. We appreciate it. It's easy to support the great work that this organization does every day. Let's continue with our financial updates.
Bonnie?
Thank you. Thank you, State and Nathan. So first attachment 9A is our standard attachment, but I know maybe first time for a few of you to see it. And So it's the May 31st financials budgets to expense report, and you can see that we are well within our budget, both for revenues and expenditures, and doing very well. If you continue on, the next page is the June 30th preliminary statement, and all of you know that at year end, we're still working on getting our accruals done and things like that. So this will change slightly, and we'll bring you the final statement at our September meeting for you to view. But you can see that we projected to spend a little over 25 million, and right now are about 19.7. I anticipate that going up just a little bit, but well within what we had budgeted, and in good financial shape. The fund balance is healthy, projecting probably a little less than what you see there, maybe around 21.5 in the fund balance. And for those of you seeing this for the first time, the next page is actually what is referred to on the first page, the current market value restricted. That is actually an investment of 7.5 million that we put in an investment account with First Citizens Bank. And so each time we meet, we look at the market value reconciliation, and you can see that we are continuing to lose a little bit of money there as the market fluctuates, and we're hoping to just leave that where it is. And my last meeting with them, they felt like it would start upticking soon, and we would make up the money that we lost and then some. But you can see the reconciliation there for the last quarter. The fourth page of the financials is just our grants listing. It lists each grant that we get, who's responsible for it, the amount for this year, how much we've spent, and how much we requested for your review. And we had not posted our July payroll, which actually is based on FY22. So this isn't a final FY22 grant report yet. This is just through May 31st. So we'll have one more month to add on here before year end, but you can see that that's ticking along nicely. And then the last sheet, well, the second to last sheet is actually our funds consolidation report. And you can see that that's just all of our sites listed, how much of our federal funds are consolidated. If you remember, we consolidate our state and local with our federal money, and where we are with our drawdowns at the bottom of the page as we move through the school year. And just as a reminder, those grants run through September, so we don't have to have everything cleared out by June 30th like we do with some of the state grants and things. The final report for the financials is just our look at Heartland. If you remember, we look at that each time just to make sure that we are accounting for their expenditures, since we had planned to replicate and for them to branch off from us. And we're doing that. They are in the making money at this point, and this is based on FTE revenues from the bib and butt sites, and we'll continue to monitor that and set up this financial for FY23 just to keep that rolling so that we can keep an eye on that. So, any questions? That's a lot of numbers.
I do want to point out one thing to the board. When we're opening Heartland, we opened it just like we did Coastal. And part of that opening was to have a reduced salary for employees, because they wouldn't be able to afford our level when they first were going to break off. Well, they never got to break off. So time has moved on. As you can see from this report, they're now working in the black. And so we are able now to pay those employees for this fiscal year for the first time at the same level as Foothills employees. And it's only because they're now working in the black. And so when and if we're able to break them off into their own school, they're going to start with a good fund balance and be ready to go. So that was a big move for us to be able to equalize that for the Heartland staff.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's very helpful. And then any other questions about 9A, attachment 9A? Okay, attachment 9B, you saw in the financials our nice fund balance. And so we're taking, I mentioned this at the last meeting, I believe, but we're taking steps to invest in some US Treasury bonds. And we actually had the sale of the bonds today. And I'm happy to report that we'll get a 2.9% interest on $10 million 5 million of it to come due in 2025 and 5 million to become due in 2026. And we will be netting 971,000 and a few odd dollars in earnings. So a great investment. Working with Raymond and James was very smooth, and I think it's a good thing to wise move with our money, since right now in our checking account it's earning less than 1%.
That's great news. We've talked about this at length, and many of us on the call in our home districts have pursued the same option with some of our fund balance and some of the changes in the economy and what's paying what. So definitely a great option for some of our fund balance, and that'll certainly earn a higher dividend, as you've already mentioned.
Absolutely. That concludes my report unless there's any other questions.
Thank you, Bonnie. Okay, we'll move forward. We're still keeping track of COVID and the activity, and there's been, up and down, and we're reminding everyone of the protocols. Of course, the governor has passed the no mask bill, which will be interesting if we have an outbreak, but we continue to have masks and other materials available to sites, and we still have our COVID listserv, so if we have any COVID reports, we address it consistently across all of our sites. And so this is where we stand with COVID. We're not out of the woods yet. Unemployment, we're feeling a lot of relief right now. You've got our report, and Bonnie, I think we had 3 individuals who sent in something.
Yes, just recently. This
As
month.
we closed out June
Yes.
30, as you remember, we gave our people till June 30 to submit a waiver to the Department of Labor for them to get reimbursement, and our people are getting reimbursed, not only the state portion, but the federal portion. And Dan Murphy did a beautiful job working with us, explaining it to staff in multiple ways on how to get this. And he's coached them on filling out the forms, and it's actually appears to be working. So the board did due diligence by supporting our staff who were impacted by this and had to make payments. They're now getting all their money back, and Foothills is also getting their money back. So this, we did the right thing by our people with how we handled this, in my opinion. Is there anything else?
No, I didn't know. I think it's.
All right, so we just wanted you to be aware. And he's following that right with us. The next item, Norris, this is in honor of you. Norris attended the Baldwin Foothills graduation ceremony. And at that graduation ceremony, there was my video, the speech that went across to all of the sites. And she suggested that that would be a good thing for board members to hear, their local board members, her board members. And so we worked with, actually Todd worked with me to shorten it down to get it under 5 minutes. And we reduced it and we filmed it, and now it's ready, and I sent it to Norris. But I'm putting that on there, that this would be a good infomercial for your board. I think it's 4 minutes and 30 seconds, something like that. Just an overview of what Foothills is all about. And there's a lot of detail, of course, it's not in there, but if you have new board members or new principals or new community members that need to understand, we are offering this as a resource for all of our partner districts. Maurice, I don't know if you want to make any comment about that.
I just think every chance we get to highlight the impact that Foothills has on our students, and especially those students that are not being successful in a traditional high school, I think we need to do that. And so we have had Foothills from the very beginning, but I think our board still needs a refresher of what Foothills is offering and what it's all about. But also our school administrators. So I've used also the video with our school administrators so that they can see the value of having Foothills in our school district.
Thank you, Norris. Thank you for the suggestion, and thank you for the support. And thank you to Todd for helping me shore that down. And we trimmed off 5 minutes of that to get it to something that people would actually maybe tune into for 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Well done.
Thank you so much, Norris. And one thing that we have found that's real important, those of us like Maurice, were here from the very beginning. We know where the beginning started. But after 7 years, there's a lot of people who come on board who don't know that story. And so we ask that our site directors visit with their partner high school principals and administrative staff, counselors, et cetera, to repeat the story again. That, what we're about, what we can do, and what we can offer. Because sometimes people get confused, and it's a good a reminder. So thanks, Maurice. We have 3 policies that we're going to put on the table, and I've asked Dale, Todd, like you, to also give us a brief overview of these 3 policies. And Nathan, these will become an action item next meeting. So Dale, if you'll just share with me.
The first one that we have listed there is BCBI, and that is an update. That policy, I believe, was originally adopted in 2018. And all 3 of these policy updates are in response to recent legislation that you all, I'm sure, are very familiar with. The major changes in BCBI is just changing, for anyone who wants to address the board, changing the notice with which they need to request that from 5 days to 24 hours to be in compliance with the law. And then requiring us to develop rules of conduct for public input and participation that would specifically say, what are the norms for public participation and what are the consequences of a member of the public not adhering to those. And so this is the policy end of that. At the next meeting, we will bring some norms to you to review and vote on at some point. And then we'll do that again every year on an annual basis. The next one is IKBB, divisive concepts. We pulled from the model policy for the most part. We just needed to update a few bits of terminology, such as changing out the principal role for a site director role. And the final policy is JRB, the Parents' Bill of Rights. Again, we mostly went with the model policy that I'm sure you all saw, but we just had to make some minor adjustments. One example that comes to mind is providing instructional materials the first 2 weeks of each grading period, whereas at Foothills, our curriculum is available to parents via Canvas Learning Management any time of the year. We will be coming back to you a little bit later in the year for the Senate Bill 226 response regarding inappropriate materials. But for now, those are the 3 that we are presenting to you for review at this meeting.
Thank you. Good job, Dale. This is Dale is just starting out. He asked me to get a tag made that said in training. So everywhere we go, he has a disclaimer. But you did a very fine job with that. Thank you so much. Okay. Any questions about those policies? Okay, moving right on. This year, Dan Murphy, we asked him to review our handbooks. And we have one more that he hasn't quite finished yet, and that's federal programs. But he will be going through each one of our manuals, so you know that when we bring it to you, his hands have already been all over this. And so we're bringing you the business operations, special education, and student handbook. And all 3 of those were posted and up there for your approval in the action items. And as I say, we'll bring you federal programs at the next meeting. But Dan did a very nice job. And I'm going to talk to you about something else Dan did for us shortly. The next item is the intergovernmental, and this is what we do every year, where all our partner school districts sign off that we'll all work together. And it has all the same terms that we've had in the past. And so this is just your copy, but after it's approved at this meeting, then Bonnie will run it through DocuSign. So you might remember Mark Chanel used to drive all over the state of Georgia to get these signed, but we don't do that anymore. It will go through DocuSign, and Bonnie will activate that probably tomorrow, where these will go around for signatures. And again, this is nothing unusual or different. It's what we are customarily signing off on. The next, we have a contract with the Department of Defense, and that's the entity that we work with for our Youth Challenge program. As a matter of fact, last week. Dale went with me up to Marietta. We met with all the generals about the Youth Challenge program to make sure that everything was going smoothly and how they can support us with Senate Bill 153. I'll tell you about in a minute. But it could not have been a better meeting and a more, they're just are super pleased with what we're doing. And so they said they'd be very happy to appear before the Senate or House with whatever they needed to do to support our work. But that's what this is. And then the next is our annual requirement to have our board members sign off on the conflict of interest and code of ethics. And again, Bonnie will send this through DocuSign so that we can have it on file, that everyone is aware of the conflict of interest and code of ethics that we must follow. That'll be coming your way. And then the next is the governance training plan. And Nathan, thanks for meeting with us last week about this, because we've gotten some more information and we have a revised plan. And Dale's going to briefly talk about this, and we're in communication with the DOE, and I think you will be pleased.
So this was a draft plan, but this just in 7 minutes ago, the Department of Education approved it. So this will be the plan that we go with. You'll see what we're doing here is really creating an individual plan for each board member to achieve the minimum number of hours. So the one thing that everyone will need to participate in is March 28th, and I believe that's after the recent Board of Control meeting.
Yes.
And that will be our whole board training. And we will also do 1 hour of financial training during that meeting. Then we will do a blended learning type of experience similar to this past school year for the remaining hours of the financial training. And then whatever balance is left over for new members, that would be 10 hours. For returning members, that would be 4 hours. We will work with you to develop a custom plan to get the hours that you need for your responsibilities as a board member. So you see, for example, Dr. Franklin, we discussed he's going to the GSBA conference. So that would satisfy the remaining hours there. Laurie Allison is going to the new board member orientation through GSBA. So her remaining hours would be satisfied. One other thing that was approved here is for new board members who serve as local system superintendents to not have to attend the new board member orientation, since a lot of the materials covered there would be simply a review for you. And so we will work with you, Dr. Hooker, Dr. Urban, and Dr. Price, to see which GSBA opportunities you would like to participate in, or if you're going to the UGA State of Education Conference, or if your local Board of Education is already doing some certified training opportunities, we may can include some of that here as well.
May I ask what time frame are we looking at? Just for this upcoming year?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay, yes. So I know that I can't speak for my colleagues, but I think a lot of us participate in the GSBA pre-workshops, which is 6-hour pre-conference workshops. I participate in that twice a year, and then our whole board governance training that our board does twice a year as well.
Wonderful.
So I guess I just need to know what kind of documentation you need.
Yes, ma'am, we'll get to you on that.
So I think we finally have gotten to a place where it's a much easier and more reasonable and matches better to the jobs you do during the day.
Appreciate your work on that and looking into the possibilities. Yeah, that will definitely streamline. Several of us on the board are already going to multiple things. So we've spent several phone calls talking about, and it's good to hear that the state has approved that flexibility. Now, looking at our upcoming meeting dates, which I know we'll get to eventually, because of that approval, how will that change our previously scheduled November the 16th and May 16th whole board training for Foothills?
Do you want to jump to that now, Dr. Franklin, or do you want to?
Sure, yeah. Well, it's up to you, whichever. I know as long as we discuss it. For
Okay.
planning.
All right. Well, just sit tight. Let's come back around to that because that did adjust the calendar. The next item is dual enrollment. We are all over, not about trying to get these kids jobs and being prepared for jobs. but making sure they're taking advantage of every dual enrollment opportunity, as well as the opportunity to earn an option B diploma. And so we have a group that's very focused on this and delivering information to each of our sites, and it's really quite good. And truthfully, a lot of traditional K-12 high schools don't know this information very well. Mike Culp is a former, actually he was in Social Circle and in Oconee County, and he's like our point person, and he has others working with him. But I told him that I was going to tell you that I would offer his services if you would want him to meet with your high school teams or whatever to explain and look and understand how this works. Because unfortunately, a lot of our kids in the state of Georgia, not just Foothills kids, but kids, high school kids, are missing out on opportunities that could save their families a lot of money. And that's one issue. But the other issue, missing opportunities for higher education and employment, et cetera. And so we're crawling all over that. That's a big focus for us in Foothills. So if you would like that, we would be very happy to connect you to Michael Culp. Just let me know. So I have now advertised 3 people out there. The next one is really very interesting too. And this is where I want to come back to Dan Murphy and what he did for us. About 2 months ago, we had Dan do a part of the student services training that we held in June. And he could only barely brush the top of each topic. And I asked him to come back and do a more in-depth look at 3 things. 1, what happens when a student turns 18? And that their life changes. And for us, the mean age is 17. So we have a lot of 18 and plus, students in our schools. When they turn 18, the rules change. And we need to be real clear of what their rights are and that we're honoring them. And so we have really worked through a process with that to make sure that we are acknowledging when they do turn 18 and what they're entitled to. And the second thing we looked at and took a hard look at is the hospital homebound program. There is a state program, but it's a charter school, which we are, and which every school district in the state can. We are waiving the state's definition of hospital homebound. And we are creating something else called HEAL. And it's looking at students who might need an alternate teaching environment temporarily. And we are forming this program that we will offer to all of our students. Because it's not only students who need it medically, but they might be pregnant or they may be sick or there's a million different reasons that you would find in your traditional high school, but we have the capacity to make it even more applicable. Because right now, the hospital homebound, if you're honest about it, sending a teacher out for 3 hours a week is not going to cut it. They really need a lot more. And so we have figured out a way to get more help to those students who need to be out of the school environment for a period of time. And we're very happy to share the details of that program. As a matter of fact, we've got Dale is working with a focus group on how to develop that and roll that out, and we'll roll it out this fall, but we're feeling good about it. The third area that we had Dan address was how do we support transgender students? We, like everyone else, we have a lot of transgender students cropping up in each one of our sites. No one does not have somebody, but we need to make sure we are treating the students with respect and the honor that they deserve. And that's exactly how we're working. We don't want to single them out. We make sure our policies are good for all students. And so Dan has done a stellar job of taking us back through law cases and that kind of thing and helping us build a rationale. And so we're in the process of rolling that out. We've met with our staff several times already about how you handle bathrooms and names and name change and all those different things. But Dan did a very, very good job with us on those 3 topics. So now I'm hanging out Dan's sign because he really did a good job with us. And so that's the end of my discussion items. So I'll stop right there. We'll get into executive session, see if there are any questions.
Any questions from our board members? Thank you, Dr. Gibney Sherman. Excellent report. Excellent job on the EOC progress, our strategic plan, and preparation of our Cognia review, and all the other policies and updates. Thank you for spending time on that. Next up is item 7. We have board members. We have action items before us on our agenda. And is it okay with the group to consider these items as a consent agenda?
Yes, agreed.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. We have items A through F. Dr. Gibbons Chairman, just making sure nothing else was added. I see A through F, approval of our personnel that we've already mentioned. Approval of the May 2022 financials. We've just had a briefing on that. Approval of finalized policies, GBRH, policy IFCB, which involves field trips and excursions, policy IHF, graduation requirements. Item D is to approve the handbook updates that were mentioned, specifically 4 areas: business operations, federal programs, special education, and the student handbook. And then item E, the FY23 intergovernmental agreement that's been mentioned already, and the approval of the FY23 Department of Defense Youth Challenge Program renewal letter. Dr. Gibbons Sherman, anything that I failed to mention?
No, you did exactly right.
Okay, board members, I'll entertain a motion at this time for approval of these action items.
So moved.
Dr. Hooker, thank you.
Second, Lori.
We have a second. Let me pause just for a second. Any discussion from our board? Hearing none, all those in favor of these items, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Our action items are approved. Thanks so much for that. Before we adjourn, we do have item 9, some meeting dates upcoming. Of course, today's meeting the 26th. Our next meeting is Tuesday, September the 27th, which will also be teleconference via Zoom. And then we'll pause just for a minute, Dr. Gibbons Sherman. And do we know yet about our scheduled Wednesday, November 16th training? Given the newest information here about our training options for our hours, how would that be affected? And if we don't know yet, that's okay as well. I know we'll at least have a board meeting that day.
Actually, I can talk to you about the September 27th, as you say, and then we moved it back to Tuesday, November 15th, which is the date that it normally would have been.
That's right.
And so so that's a change from what we had previously. And then the next meeting is January 17th at 4:00.
There it is. Okay. Yep.
And then the next meeting I want to double check on, because that March 28th, I don't believe that is the recent date. I believe it's the date before. So I want to go back and double check.
We can check on that, and I see it now. Forgive me for not noticing it, but I do see that change on the 15th. So no needed governance training there because of the other hours that we're able to get. And so our whole board governance training will be tentatively March the 28th, I see. And that is a change because of my old one. I see March 22nd. So I think you guys did change that to align with the Border Control meeting.
Okay, yeah, we'll double check and make sure that lines up to the Border Control.
Okay.
But that's
Great.
And I can confirm that does match the Border Control date.
Okay, that was our goal. Okay, we'll just perfect.
Awesome.
And then 8/16, and that's our year. So Robbie, we just meet every other month. So this is the right board to be on.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for a great meeting and productive meeting. We will pause just for a moment. Any other comments from anyone before?
Yes, we need to go in executive session.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna create a room for y'all. Does everybody need to be assigned to the room?
I need the board members, and then Bonnie and I are in the conference room, and everybody else can leave. Thank you for coming.
All right. And for our board members on the call, especially new board member, Dr. Hooker, Leo, if you'll just give us a quick synopsis of, do we need to go to another room, or are we just going to stay on this call? Just tell us what we need to do going forward. You're going to assign us to a room and we just accept it, right?
Yes, I'm gonna open a room. You're gonna see it on your screen. Please join that room. I'm gonna stay in this main lobby waiting for y'all for sake of a live stream. That way the public can be excluded from your meeting. I'm gonna go ahead and open the room.
Okay, and then once we're done, we'll hit exit and you'll put us back in the primary room.
Yeah, once you can leave the room, you'll be back here and then you can exit the meeting.
Yeah,
That's how.
yeah. I need to learn how to use it.
Really, we're here. No, wait.
Okay, everybody's back.
Yes.
All right, looks like we've got everyone back. The chair will entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
Jennifer, so moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Jennifer. And a second, Dr. Hooker. Thanks for that. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We are officially out of executive session, back into regular session. Dr. Gibby Sherman, thanks for the updates. Is there any other business before we adjourn our meeting?
Just stay tuned to Senate Bill 153. We've got a lot of good activity, and rather than taking more time, but I can tell you it's on a good path. I'll be back with you.
That's good news. We look forward to our next steps. With that, thanks everyone for their time. Great work, great